Welcome back, my friends, to the Derate The Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. Each week, I'm sharing stories from my path and using the power of conversation and collaboration with my many great guests. Together, we chart a course toward understanding, bridging divides, and fostering a community where wisdom prevails over discord. Friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. The only good thing about a bad attitude is we have the ability as individuals to change it. For me, it starts with gratitude and personal accountability. I am so incredibly grateful that you have taken the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Please remember to subscribe and share the DTH podcast with your network of friends. If you would like to support the show, check out the Support Us page on the Derate The Hate website. With that, my friends, let's get to it. If you've been with us for a while, you know that one of the most important things we do here at the DTH podcast is engage in conversations that challenge the way we think, push us towards self-examination, and ultimately help us bridge divides in an increasingly polarized world. Today's guest is someone who has spent his career doing exactly that, holding up a mirror to our culture, examining the deep societal shifts that shape our lives, and challenging us to think critically about who we are and where we're going. William Deresiewicz is an award-winning essayist, a cultural critic, and an author whose work has explored everything from the failures of elite education to the struggles of artists in the digital age. His latest book, The End of Solitude, Selected Essays on Culture and Society, is a powerful look at how technology, social media, and the erosion of local communities have transformed our sense of self and our relationships with one another. Bill's writing doesn't just diagnose problems, he calls us to action. He argues that political polarization, the decline of genuine human connection, and the toxicity of online discourse aren't just abstract issues. They are deeply personal, affecting the way that we live, the way that we engage with our communities, and the way that we see each other as human beings. As a new member of the Pro-Human Foundation's Board of Advisors, Bill is actively contributing to the mission of reinforcing individuality and shared humanity in a time when dehumanization seems all too easy. In this conversation, we'll dive into some of the big ideas Bill has explored in his work, how the internet has altered our relationships with solitude, and why civic engagement is more important than ever, and how we can reclaim a sense of individuality and respect in a world that too often seeks to divide us. Friends, this is a conversation about culture, about connection, and about what it really means to be human. So let's get into it with my new friend, William Deresiewicz. Here we go. William Deresiewicz, thank you for joining me on the Derate The Hate podcast. Looking forward to a great conversation today, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Bill, so when the Pro-Human Foundation reached out and said, hey, we've got a new member, and congratulations on joining our board of advisors at the Pro-Human Foundation, but they said, Bill Deresiewicz coming on to our advisory board, and we want you to check his work out, your essays, your books. I started looking at them a little bit deeper, and I'm like, this guy is got some just incredible content out there, and it's just great. So that's where I want to start our conversation today, Bill, is I just want to talk about some of the work that you've done over the years as a cultural, cultural critic, I guess is that in some ways I've heard you described as, and somebody who looks at society, who's looked at education, who's looked at the intellectual elites of our country and kind of gone through all of these different things and really brought to light things that a lot of people just haven't thought of before. So at least that's the way that I saw it. So what I'd like you to do for me, Bill, is I'd like to start with talking about your most current book, and then we can kind of see where that leads our conversation. So the End of Solitude, this book of essays about culture and society. Let's start there and see where this goes.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm still not sure exactly what a cultural critic is or does. And it is kind of a squishy term, kind of a broad term, can mean different things to different people. But, I studied English Lit in graduate school, and I was an English professor up until 2008. And, I mean, one of the things that you do, or the thing that you should do when you study literature, is you look at this kind of complex text, and you ask, what does it mean, and where does it come from? And I think that that's a good working description of what a cultural critic should do. You can look at sort of, cultural artifacts like novels or movies or music or whatever, but you can also look at larger trends in our culture, in our politics, in our, higher education world or whatever, and try to understand, what does it mean? What's going on? What does it tell us about ourselves? What lessons does it have for us? And that's what I try to do. I have written a lot about higher ed because I was a professor, and I love being a professor, but there are also many things about the whole enterprise that disenchanted me. And I don't need to explain this to people now because there's been a lot of conversation about this. But as somebody who studied literature and is interested in other arts, I write about that a lot too. And then also just kind of more, in a way that can be harder to get your hands on, just sort of like where we are culturally in general, like what, and like you said, and this is what I try to do, and I hope I'm successful sometimes, to see things that other people aren't seeing, or maybe I should say to notice things that other people are seeing but aren't noticing, that I'm not noticing either until you start to ask yourself, like, wait a second, is it always been like this? And if it hasn't always been like this, why? One of the things I started writing about pretty fast was the internet. I mean, I didn't get on Facebook until 2008 because I'm old. I was going to say older. I guess I have to say I'm old. I'm 61. So I was 44 when I joined Facebook in 2008 because that's when my friends were joining. And I immediately saw how it was changing, my relationship with my friends, my sort of relationship with myself. Yeah. And the larger culture in ways that have become super obvious now. So I was writing about that almost right away and thinking specifically of, I had a couple of essays about solitude, and that one of them gave the title to the book, ultimately to the collection, The End of Solitude. What is this solitude thing? Why is it valuable? What does it mean that we're losing it?
So when I think about, the term critic or the classification of critic or whatever, a cultural critic as somebody who, whether it be a movie critic or a food critic or a cultural critic or whatever, I'm thinking about somebody who's kind of stepping outside something, separating myself from it, trying to look at everything objectively, break it down into its most basic pieces, figure out what's working, what's not, and speaking critically about all of these different things. And I think far too often, Bill, there's just not enough people actually doing that right now. They can't separate themselves from the actual thing that they're trying to look at critically.
I think that's well said. I mean, there are a million people doing cultural criticism now. I mean, I think that's why the term is a term. But they don't often seem to be. See, this to me is what is the key. You're stepping away from the thing, but you're really stepping away from yourself.
Yes.
And so much cultural criticism that I read or don't read the beginning of and then put aside, is people who are very clearly not engaged in an active self-examination. They're just reading into whatever the thing is, what they already believe. And to me, what's valuable about this for others, and what's useful for me, myself, is that it's helped me to understand my own assumptions about the world and to question them. Sometimes I affirm them. I don't necessarily question them to destroy or discard them. But I want to know if I'm going to believe something. I want to know that I have good reasons to believe it.
And that's such a true phenomenon, right? That affirmation or confirmation bias, that when we're looking at things, that we are often just trying to confirm or affirm what we've already believed without our ability for that self-reflection. And
Yes.
I think that's one of the biggest things that leads to the ugly polarity, the toxic polarity that we see in society today, and that us versus them mentality is that people can't step outside themselves and look at things critically and say, hey, I might be wrong. Maybe I need to think about this again. Maybe I need to look at this from a different angle and see if what I had believed initially isn't necessarily the right path, isn't the right solution. Maybe I don't even understand the problem. But so often, so much of this stuff gets muddied up because we get in our own way. At least that's the way that I've perceived it.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that is that our sense of self, our ego, our self-esteem has become really wrapped up in these things, right? We have these intense emotional and psychological investments in holding tight to our positions. So it's not just an intellectual or cognitive challenge. It's much more fraught than that. And it's about, what tribe you belong to. I mean, these are intense, powerful emotional drives. But they've gotten, I'm sure that's always been the case to a certain extent, but they've gotten so intense now that it's preventing us from thinking, and it's preventing us from changing our opinions and changing sort of our, kind of the way we kind of engage the world.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So as somebody then, Bill, who's written about the onset of this internet ecosystem and how that started to change people, you said you're one of the first people to start writing about that and really observing the way that it was changing society and the way that it was changing you even.
Yeah.
What do you think is the greatest contributor to that, and how that has actually contributed to that us versus them tribal mentality?
Yeah. So I should also say that when I started to write about social media in 2009, this was before the smartphone, right?
So you had to be on one of these computers doing it.
You had to be on your computer, on your laptop, and that was already bad enough. Mm-hmm. But, then you closed the cover of your laptop and you went about your life.
Yeah.
Now it's always with us. And what is always with us, and this is what I mean when I say the end of solitude, what's always with us is other people's judgments of us.
Sure.
This to me is the key. I mean, there are a lot of things, the addiction and all that stuff, but the key thing is that we live constantly in other people's opinions of us. And so everything that we're doing, everything that we're locked into by these voices. I mean, that's what cancel culture means. And there's cancel culture on both sides. It's what these platforms are kind of designed to amplify, because we place ourselves within these networks of likes and comments and so forth. And I feel like it's kind of, it's evacuated our interiority. Like we only exist insofar as we are mirrored back to ourselves by others. I mean, this to me is psychologically debilitating, and I think it's morally debilitating.
Oh, for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, when I think about that, instantly where my mind is going with that, Bill, is when you say, it's mirrored back to us, and we're, I think about, again, the constant seeking of affirmation from others, and hoping that we're popular or whatever, and now all of a sudden we start doing things that we may not have otherwise done. I know for a fact that I have seen that over the course of the past several years, that people are more and more involved in that internet ecosystem and things like that. They've changed in a way that they're saying things that they wouldn't normally have said, whether it be because of the anonymity that comes along with being on the internet, or the seeking of affirmation, or wanting to be in the in crowd, instead of just wanting to be affirmed and loved by your family in your home,
Right.
or by your
Right.
neighbors or people within your community. Now you've got a whole sea of people out there that you're trying to somehow impress. And then also to take that to a different level, kind of thinking about the whole concept of, and I don't know who initially said it or where the study came from or whatever. I know it's a part of a Francis Fukuyama book that I've been going through, but people are more inclined to follow the law or break the law if they're within if the confines of their community are people that are breaking the law, then they're probably going to break the law, or they're going to follow the law if more people within their community are following the law. It just becomes a natural thing. But if you're spending all of your time in this internet ecosystem where people are toxic and saying horrible things about other people and following a certain mindset or mentality, or kind of shifting their morals to flow with something more ugly, I think you're just going to be more inclined to do that because it becomes the norm.
Yeah. I think norm is a key word. Like you're placing yourself in a community with different norms, and of course we absorb the norms of the community around us. I like the way you contrasted it with being known by your family, by your actual in-person community, for a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, those people know you in a very different way, and they affirm you as the full, hopefully, as the full person you are, and they see you as the full person you are. The little tiny little distorted piece of yourself that you put online is the thing that your online quote unquote community is judging, is affirming, or condemning. And so it's not really you, but the more you do it, the more it becomes you, because that's the part of you that kind of it's only the part of you that expresses these extreme and kind of angry and kind of unkind opinions. And then I'd also say that, sort of the morality of an in-person community is a morality that's based on sort of the acts that we do. Why do we have the norms that we have? Well, I mean, kindness helps other people, and, showing up for people and being a good neighbor. I mean, they're not abstract codes. They come out of the lived, life of an actual community, family, faith community, whatever. On the internet, we're relating to each other in a completely different way. So the norms are addressing completely different kinds of interactions. So all of a sudden you end up in a situation where, like, the approved norm is to actually be a terrible person.
Right.
This is not good.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then I think it gives people also, and this is something that I've been thinking so much more about, because I've been focusing a lot of my time, Bill, on like concepts of subsidiarity and local community engagement and what that means for civic renewal and things like that. And something that just came to mind in this conversation that you and I are having right here is, I think a lot of times when people are online and they're talking about these big macro things that they really can't affect change in, but they certainly have outrage for, they will say and do things online because they have latitude to say and do these big hyperbolic things because they know they really don't have any way of affecting change when it comes to those things. Talk about that for a second, because I don't know, it's just just something that popped into my mind right now. But I think there might be something to that, because if you know that what you're saying and what you're doing is not going to affect things on that grand scale, you're probably going to say and do things that are probably a little bit more exaggerated than you would if you were working on a problem within your own neighborhood or your own community.
Right, because there are no real consequences.
There's no real consequences.
Although we are actually seeing now in our politics, and again on both sides, this terrible thing, which is that sort of online is becoming real life. So crazy ideas that you would only ever express online because there are no consequences, all of a sudden people are actually trying to do them with disastrous consequences. But I'd also say something else, that it's something I think you have thought about much more than I have. But you're talking about local communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the big stories of our time, of the internet time, is the loss or the decay of the local. There's that famous saying of, I think, Tip O'Neill, the longtime Democratic Speaker of the House from back in the 80s, all politics is local.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the first person to point out that is the opposite is now true. That was true in the days of Tip O'Neill, when politics meant sort of the local party apparatus. And you knew your alderman, and your alderman sort of, helped you get a turkey for Christmas or whatever it was, right? And that was the roots of the national parties. The power sources were the local sources, churches, unions, whatever it was. And now the local, on the political level, has been evacuated, and politics is the internet projected onto the local. Mm-hmm. And I think, we're constantly asking ourselves, how can we step back from this situation? We've brought ourselves, I think, the revitalization of the local, which means real people in real relationships with people in face-to-face, trying to solve their problems, mm-hmm. and exerting the power that they really do have in the local, which they don't have in the global, can be a really great thing.
Yeah, this is absolutely one of my biggest goals for this coming year and years to come, Bill, is getting more involved in the concept of civic engagement and civic renewal. Showing people truly that, I've said this a number of times, and ironically, I think part of this came about from J.D. Vance's book Hillbilly Elegy. But the concept that the federal government is neither the cause of nor the solution to all or even most of your problems as an individual, but being a guy like me, I'm a conservative guy that believes in individual liberty, personal accountability. It's things that I talk about all the time. But we in our politics have allowed this federal apparatus to invade our personal lives, when the reality is most of that shouldn't even be affecting us at a personal level. Now, unfortunately, it's affecting a lot of people at the personal level right now, and it shouldn't be for many reasons that started long before, a few weeks ago. But the reality is this: people, and this has been a great contributor to our toxic polarity as well, is people have allowed their political identity to become part of their personal identity. And then anytime somebody says something that's in contrast to or negatively, portrays something about their political identity, they take it as a personal attack. And therein lies that us versus them tribalism that just blows up into something more. What we need to do, Bill, I think, is really start to focus again on what is our community identity, what are our common problems, and how can we as a community start to work towards making those things better. I mean, and I think the internet is one of our biggest challenges, let's say, in doing that, because people are more interested in looking at their screen than looking at their neighbor.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, people are inside on their screens instead of, this is what the decay of the local and of the relational is about. But I think becoming more involved on the local level, first of all, it helps relieve that sense of powerlessness that I think is driving so much of the toxicity in our politics. And it also helps you remember or learn for the first time that other people are people, that everyone is complicated, that even if your neighbor votes for the other party, there are all kinds of things you have in common with them, that they are coming from a genuine place. And I'm saying this to both sides. I mean, one of my biggest critiques of my side, which is the left half of the spectrum, is that it has had no interest in even learning, let alone understanding the humanity on the other side, and the fact that people on the other side are driven by perfectly human, understandable, valid motives.
Right, right.
They're not bad people and they're not ignorant people. They just see the world differently from you. But you can have a conversation and recognize, how much you have in common or how much what you can work towards in common.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this plays into, what I've talked so much about on this podcast is that fog model that's used so prevalently these days by people in our media, people in our academic institutions, people in our politics. That fog model of fear, outrage, and grievance, teaching and telling people, and this goes to something I want to talk to you a little bit about too, because I know you talked about our education system quite a bit, is people in these institutions, again, whether it be politics, academia, the media, or whatever, use this fear, outrage, and grievance model to keep people mad, scared, and aggrieved against the other people, not simply stating that they may be wrong on this issue, but they are evil for having this stance on this issue.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, what you reminded me of is something that I heard from a social scientist once, which is that whenever you're in an us versus them situation, no matter what it's about or who the sides are, there are always three stages in the way you understand the other side. First, you think they're ignorant. Mm-hmm. Then you think they're dumb. Then you think they're evil.
Yeah.
So obviously we've gotten to the evil part. But, I mean, even the ignorant and dumb part are not good places to be.
No.
I mean, I think there's no solution to this dehumanization except to rehumanize each other. Part of the problem is that the dehumanization is happening at scale, and humanization can only happen at a human scale of one at a time.
That's right.
Or a few at a time. Yeah.
That's right. And that's why, the mission statement of this podcast, Bill, is bettering the world one attitude at a time. How do we react to things that are outside of our control? How do we get along better with people who have differing mindsets than us? How do we build upon and rebuild that civic renewal thing that I was talking about earlier? I think to do that at scale, like you said, it's that dehumanization thing is happening at scale. And the only way we're going to counter that and beat back that wolf that's at everybody's door now is to do it one person at a time through true civic engagement, and then to take it back to, one of the reasons we're speaking today, that pro-human message, right? I mean, even though people are different or appear to be different than us or think different than us or look different than us or worship different than us, whatever, all of those things are irrelevant not irrelevant. I don't want to say irrelevant. They're very relevant, but they're in comparison to the pro-human stance, in comparison to who we are as individuals and what our needs are as individual human beings. That desire to have a roof over our head, to have food in our belly, to have security, to have a place for our children to get a good education, a place for us to safely worship the way that we want to worship, all of those things. That pro-human message has to take precedence over those things, those perceived differences that we may have.
Yes, that's right. I mean, one of the things that makes me cautiously optimistic is that no one is happy with this. I mean, right? maybe the relatively few sort of professional influencers who are making a lot of money or whose egos getting pumped up by their many thousands of followers. But most of us are really miserable. We're miserable with the political polarization. We're miserable with what the internet has done to us. I mean, there's been so much talk about this now for the last 5 or 10 years. We're well past that time when the internet was something that made us sort of feel happy and optimistic. So because we're so unhappy, I think there's a tremendous desire to find ways to get out of this.
Yeah.
It is sort of one at a time kind of work, but I think the potential audience is very receptive. People want this.
People are ready. People are ready, and And one of the things my friend David Eisner said a while back when I had him on the podcast was he believes there is a depolarization wave, a pro civility wave coming because of so many people just being fed up with the constant fear and outrage. That thing that continues to happen, and those that continue to capitalize on that fear and outrage to keep us aggrieved and keep us separated. I think he's absolutely right. I think people are hungry for civility again. I think they just need to be shown that there is a better way to engage, shown that true civic engagement will come out of, or true civic renewal will come out of, civic engagement within our communities, working with each other again. Again, stop looking at the screen, start looking at your neighbor kind of thing. Yeah. And I think the more people start to realize that, the more people will gravitate to it, because the end result will prove that that's how we got here. Or the screens are how, not all completely, but they're a big part of how we got here, and the fact that we quit actually talking to each other. The remedy is talking to each other again, speaking with each other, understanding each other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in addiction, and fortunately I've never experienced addiction in the classical sense that we talk about it. But I mean, one of the things that we're dealing with is addiction, right? It's addiction to the internet, to the dopamine hits, and it's addiction to whatever chemicals are released by the rage, right? Mm-hmm. And I assume that part of the way you get out of an addiction is to replace it with something that's better, that's good. We were talking about how people feel really bad now, so they're ready for something different. I think what's going to help bring people and keep people in these better forms of engagement is, again, just very elementary level. How is this making you feel? It feels good. It feels good to be in actual relationship with people. It feels good to solve problems together. Get that pothole paved or whatever it is, right? That feels good. So it's not an idea of this thing is better for you. It's like, give people the feeling, and they're going to be like, yeah, I would much rather be in this place than in that other place that my social media feed puts me in.
No, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So as we wrap up our conversation then, Bill, I mean, it's been a fantastic conversation, but as one of our newest members of the board of advisors for the Pro-Human Foundation, and this is something that I've asked all my fellow advisors, when you came to, or when you were asked to be part of the board of advisors, what is it that you want to bring to one of the great things about being part of this organization is sometimes it's just about being us and doing what we do. There's not really a lot to do except for being out there spreading that pro-human message. But what is it about that pro-human message that you want each and every person that's listening to this to understand, and what do you want to bring forward as part of this board of advisors?
Yeah, I mean, so I was contacted out of the blue. I hadn't heard of the Pro-Human Foundation. It's not very old. And so, of course, I went on the website and looked at what they're doing and the other kind of people like yourself who are on the advisory board. And I realized that this was worth getting involved with because it is sort of another way of taking a bite out of things that I've been passionate about and committed to for really my whole adult life. So I was a teacher for a long time. And for me, teaching was all about the things that we've been talking about, all about helping people see things more clearly, understanding themselves better, understanding others better, and also a word that you've been using a lot and that I use all the time, which is individual, right? Mm-hmm. Helping people to be individuals. I think, we grow up with this, we're all brought into sort of the beliefs and norms and values of our communities, and that's appropriate. But part of the process of growing up is learning to examine, separate, make your own choices, become an individual. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the great problems with the internet and the age of the internet is that it's all trying to make us not individuals, to make us like all the other people in our tribe, all the other people on our feed. And so to constantly, to me, when we say in the Pro-Human Foundation sort of, our uniqueness, to me, that's our individuality, right?
Yes.
That's like, and our right to our individuality, and the validity of our individuality, and our right to make judgments that may be at odds with the people around us. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to help them understand, we're not rejecting you. It's just, I'm not you, and you're not me. And it's so important for us to respect our differences. I know that's kind of a cliche, differences, but I don't mean it like in the identity politics way. I mean like the individual differences that we have from each other that makes each of us unique.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's beautiful. That is such a great way to wrap this up. Yeah. We're all unique individuals, and we just have to realize that and
that's that's like what's beautiful and fun about being a human in a world with other humans. Like that's the fun part, is that we are different.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. There are no monoliths. There are no rigid binaries. There are no pretend things. We are all these beautiful individuals with individual needs, individual thoughts. Yeah. Bill Deresiewicz, this has been an incredible conversation. So many more things that I would love to get into with you, hear about more of your essays, more of your work. I know people can find you at BillDeresiewicz.com.
There you go.
Which we'll put in the show notes because
Great. Yes. How do you spell Deresiewicz? Nobody knows.
Exactly. It will be in the show notes for this episode. I look forward to more with you in the future. William Deresiewicz, beautiful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the Derate The Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week, saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms, or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.